Hi, I'm Vanessa, and I'm going to be talking about early genetic testing for cancer. So my problem statement is that cancer is one of the most common deaths in the United States. And in 2022, a website called Cancer.org stated that a total of 1.9 million new cancer cases and 609,360 deaths from cancer are expected to occur in the U.S. in 2022, which is about 1,670 deaths a day. And it's proving that most people screen for cancer once they are older in age or once they think something is already wrong. Throughout my studies, there were no scholarly articles or studies done on why people don't screen earlier in their lives so that they can prevent the cancer from spreading. This led to my research question of how does screening early for cancer benefit future living for people, and why don't people screen earlier? So why I chose this topic, I'm currently taking AP seminar, and I did research on like the medical field and how AI works in that, kind of like the video we saw of the guy talking about it. And then I'm also really interested in like the medical field and medicine in general. I've had family experience with like my family members having cancer and them going to get genetically tested for it, and I also see as a potential future career path of me possibly going into nursing and in college. This is my original research. I investigated why people don't test for cancer earlier and the benefits of testing earlier. And then the research method I'm planning on using was case study research or correlational research. And then these are my articles that I mainly used. It was genetic testing for cancer susceptibility, the promise and the pitfalls, CDC grounds, family history, and genomics as tools for cancer prevention and control. And then the need to be aware and beware of the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act. Next were my key phases. So my hypothesis was, I believe that studies will show how early genetic testing is beneficial to a person's life in the future. And then my assumption was, I'm assuming that many families are going to want to test their children early for cancer if they have the chance to financially. And then my research was, I researched by reading through many academic journals on EBSCO. And then my significance, what I talked about earlier, is that I've had family experience with this, and then also that many people test later in their lives and they catch the cancer too late and they end up passing away earlier. And then my conclusion, which I'll talk about later. So these are my research methods that I used. I used correlational research. So I collected data and determined the level of correlation between variables. So through my research, I found many different ways that people have dealt with genetic testing and like their experiences through it, and I compared like different stories from one another. And I used the case study to observe a certain group and determine how and why situations exist within that group. So basically, I researched like genetic testing and with cancer and next to my research limitation. There's one major research limitation that I faced, and I came up with the question of why don't people test early in their life for cancer, meaning as a child. And the research I was reading through never really mentioned it at all or talked about it at all. And the main things that were mainly covered in the research was testing earlier once you feel something was wrong or once the people knew they already had cancer. Where I feel like it'll be very beneficial if they knew a lot earlier before so they can catch that cancer earlier. And then further research, I feel like further research is needed in that area of why people don't test early for cancer, meaning earlier in their life, such as when they're a child or even before they're even born. And then, as a result of all my research, I combined it into a website talking about how early genetic testing for cancer was very beneficial. And my website will cover like what genetics is, the science behind it, how it works, and how your genetic code is protected. And then these were my key findings. So genetic research has continued to expand our understanding of the role that genes play in health and disease, as well as in the development of and evolution of all living organisms. And then the science behind it, genetic cancer is a type of medical test that looks for specific changes or mutations in a person's DNA that can increase their risk of developing cancer. These mutations may be inherited from one or both parents or may occur spontaneously during a person's lifetime. And then the privacy, it's called the GINA Act, the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act, and it basically protects your genetic code from being discriminated against. And this was enacted in 2008 in response to the concern that advances in genetic testing could lead to discrimination against an individual's an individual who may be at increased risk for certain diseases or conditions based on their genetic history. And then basically how genetic testing works, and there's different types of genetic testing such as germline testing, somatic testing, and tumor profiling. And then my main key finding was early genetic testing does benefit the future living of cancer patients. And then these were the studies I found and the articles I used. And then if any questions.
Yeah, give it a round. Okay, so Vanessa, thanks for your presentation. I do have a couple of questions regarding the gaps of your research. You mentioned there were some limitations. Were there any leads, meaning any pieces of research available, any insight or interviews or commentary about early testing outside, within a piece of research? Any clue as to if there was something pro or against early genetic testing?
So throughout my research, like I mentioned, and like the mainly like scholarly articles, they never talked about testing earlier, like a person's life, mainly just once they found out they already had cancer. But when I was searching on YouTube, and there was a lot of videos talking about how people are trying to research genetic testing when the baby's still in the womb of the mother, and then just testing their like genetic information before they're even born to see if they have the cancer gene or not, and then they can prevent it in the future life.
And so that has been done, or some people are commenting that should be done.
They're commenting that it should be done.
Okay.
So it hasn't been done yet.
Do you know if that has been ever? Is there any type of prenatal screening or pregnancy screenings?
I'm not too sure because it never really came from my research.
I see. Okay. That is great. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Well done.